back. This is Mr. Sanchez with EL 140, West Covina. We're going to be starting with Unit 3, Meeting 2. The concepts and objectives today are the three-way light circuit, source power coming into the switch box and proceeding through the circuit from that vantage point, or versus the source power coming into the light box and coming back to the switches and back. We got those both illustrations set up here. We also got a receptacle circuit set up in concept of the residential typical circuits and devices that we're gonna have installed, whether it's a room, bedroom, throughout the home and the residence, okay? One of the things that we're gonna start off with, just following the plan here. This is a pretty extensive lab where you're gonna have pretty extensive instructions. The first thing that it starts off with is nail plate protection. Nail plate protection for your studs. Wherever you bored out holes, we all know that anytime a conductor passes through those bored out holes in the studs, obviously with the NEC conditions of the nail plate protection requirement, but also keep in mind, are we teaching our students what is the bore out requirement as well? The 1 1/4 inch from the face of the stud. One of the things that I have my students do on the regular, before we even start, getting to the units and start putting in devices, we go through the NEC, we determine what is this section in the NEC for nail plate protection, what concerning NEC codes tells me that I got a board in the first 1 1/4 inch. Just a little side note, we're used to the nail plates of the various sizes, the bigger version and this smaller version. There's a new version out there called the Southwire Smart Shield. It's a cylinder barrel type that goes in the hole. So we're not having the issue of, oh, you forgot to put one on the other side, you need one for this side. It's gonna protect the hole as a whole. So just a little side note, you might wanna look that up. Let's just say also, little side tip I've learned in the field, we might be looking at the face of the stud in our unit, and that's where we measured our 1 1/4 inch from before we bored the hole. But with 2x4 studs nowadays, we're not left with a lot of room to miss that requirement. We can be dealing with a 2x4 stud wall on an exterior wall, and nowadays we have insulation products, siding products that could be like in excess of 6 inches thick. So those screws that are coming in from those exterior walls and outside with these new materials, they could be 6 to 8 inches long. So be conscious of the fact that you might need nail plates coming in and protecting your bored out holes from the exterior portion too, not just the face for the drywallers. Obviously we have staples as part of that concept that we're using non-metallic cable, we're instructing. Don't forget, explain to your students the importance of pulling the non-metallic cable roll out of its package and unrolling their portion that they need. When they do that, it comes out flat, it comes out unkinked, without all the twist in it. Explain to them that in the field, inspectors want to see it flat and stapled with the writing and the description on the outer jacket facing the person, facing the inner wall. So facing me, as I come up to that wall, I want to be able to see the writing. The staple should not cause an indentation on the outer jacket that could damage the inner conductors and their insulation. We want to go over all these little points. When we come to the three-way switch here, the first one, we have a three-way setup. First three-way, second three-way, power coming in to the first three-way box, going to the second three-way, to the light system that's going to be attached to that three-way system. We have our ungrounded, we have our 2 travelers. I like to give them the image too that the manufacturer gives them on the box. It's better for them to read that because that's the official instruction. You got the grounding system coming through. And I usually use these color-coded markers, even in my own drawings, to illustrate my travelers, my ungrounded hot, and my grounding system. Okay, now we have, and then we got the common, the grounded conductor neutral coming back over here, also with the common that came from that second three-way switch. So I explained to the concept that the three-way circuit has to begin with a three-way and has to end with a three-way. When we incorporate later on in another lesson four ways, then we'll explain to them those specifics. Okay, when we take it the other direction, which has been past practice, history, right? In older residences, you might find the powers coming in through the light box and then traveling to the switches. And a lot of times what they did in place of that was they reappropriated the neutral that was down here in the switch boxes, and they relabeled them with black tape to indicate that they were using it as a switch, like a high. We can't do that anymore. Per code, under anything that's under the size 8 gauge cannot be reappropriated or reassigned a purpose. So that neutral's got to remain a neutral. So I illustrate that to them. We're not going to be reproducing this anymore, but they might come across it, so we want them to understand what it is and what's going on in front of them. So keep that concept clear, that the code, we wouldn't do it that way unless we were doing a conduit system installation. Then we could put any color that we want and put the appropriate colors needed from light to switch boxes. They were bringing the power in through the light box. Lastly, as we come over here, the receptacle circuit, a lot of times I illustrate to my students that I don't put any receptacle circuits in the field that are below a 20 amp circuit. I don't ever put in 15 amp circuit receptacles, and I illustrate that because it's so common nowadays that we have portable heaters, portable ACs. You know, we got to explain to them what is the 80% rule for our circuits, how we want to keep it, so we're not overloading things. That way, you know, that 20 amps, that AC or that portable heater that a lot of people use nowadays is not overloading with a couple other devices that's getting plugged in on top of that. So illustrate to them the importance as well, and what's your view on it, what's your take, whether 15 or 20 is your preference. But I myself use the 20 as an illustration and the calculation behind it. Okay, we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you in lab. We're gonna come on over here. We got our lab unit set up. We got our circuit, 15 amp. In this case, set up for our light circuit over here, coming over to our first three-way, our second three-way. We got our light initiating, illuminating the room now. I got my second three-way turning it off, opening up the circuit. I got my first three-way now going to be closing the circuit again. And lastly, I'm going to test it by the second three-way opening up the circuit. And you want to illustrate that you're going back and forth, one toggle at a time between the two switches, so that you can determine that they're working together and cooperative. The wire management, the wire installation is proper. If a lot of students will do this, and if you don't correct them, they'll just do this. They'll just come to one switch, turn it off and on a three-way circuit. That's not the way we test. We can't determine whether they're going to work together properly, whether they misalign a traveler to the common or something like that. So we do 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, like I illustrated over there, we got the receptacle circuit down here below. I put in place a GFCI. Nowadays, we're in new construction, like I've said before, we don't need the GFCI anymore in the new construction phase, because it's going to be at the breaker. The AFCI, GFCI breaker is going to have that protection already on the circuit. But in older homes, I want to illustrate this so that way you guys can also give that lesson, that in an older home that doesn't have the requirement of those $100 AFCI, GFCI combo breakers, that uses just the standard old operation of a circuit breaker that cost them maybe like $10 back in the day. Now we got a GFCI at the start of our receptacle circuit, and we're finishing it off with all the standard receptacles downstream, the duplex receptacles. Maximum of 3 in this unit. But again, have them take the practice of using the calculation for the size of the room and what we assign per the NEC for each receptacle, which is 180 VA or 1.5 amps per receptacle when we do not know the loads that are going to be installed there. All right, have a good one, fellas. I'll see you in lab.